Greetings and welcome to the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association's Patients Come First podcast series. Podcast episodes are available on VHHA.com and on popular podcast hosting apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many others. Podcast episodes also air each Saturday at noon and Sunday at 10 a.m. on 100.5 FM, 92.7 FM, and 8:20 a.m. across Central Virginia, and Wednesdays at 1 p.m. on 93.9 FM. Please send any questions, comments, or feedback to pcfpodcast@vhha.com. Again, that's pcfpodcast@vhha.com. And today we're excited to be joined by Dr. Claude Lewis, a primary care provider with Riverside Medical Group, for a conversation about his recently published children's book, his journeys to Riverside from his native Haiti, the work he does to support his homeland, and much more. And with that, welcome to the program, Dr. Lewis. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about my children's book and all the things that we're trying to accomplish in Haiti.
Well, we appreciate you being with us and making some time for us today. So to begin with, as we mentioned, Dr. Lewis, you grew up in Haiti, and it was a small village, I gather, that was tucked in a mountainous region in the southeastern region of the island. You had pretty meager circumstances growing up, lacking basic utilities like running water and electricity, and your father died when you were just an infant. You've overcome those obstacles to ultimately attend medical school and become a physician with some inspiration from your deceased father, as I understand it. So if you would, can you just tell us about the path that took you from your beginnings to where you are today?
It started very early. I was 4 or 5 years old. My grandma was my mentor, best friend, closest confidant at that time. I guess she was trying to shape me to be just like my dad. He passed away when I was 1 month old, and that was likely her beloved son. You know, it was very unfortunate the way he passed away. He was hit by lightning. He was struck by lightning. So my grandma and I, we grew up very close, and she would bring all the resemblance between myself and my father, physically, emotionally. And she's like, you are just like Leon. And Leon was known in the community to be the guy that, you know, would help anybody. He had a positive level of education, but really he was a community leader. He was a healer. Everybody that got sick went to him. So he earned the name of Dr. Leon with a level of education. So I just was trying to be just like my dad. It was amazing the way that they used to describe him. So I wanted to try to fit in his shoes. So that's why early on I decided to pursue medicine. Now, where I come from in Kikwa, which is, as you said, no electricity, no structure at all, dreaming to be a doctor, people would laugh at you because, I mean, people haven't seen a doctor all their lives. So to dream to be a doctor would be something crazy. But I had my grandma, and also I was studying hard, making sure I gathered the grades that I needed. And then, after elementary school, I did do well, very well in all the districts. And so I was picked up by the missionaries to come to live with them so they could, then they give me a little job. I could continue to go to high school because the closest high school to Kikwa, where I was born, was a 3-hour walk. So this missionary taking me in and sending me to their high school that they had at that time. So I left my parents early at the age of 12. I think hard work and willingness to pursue my father's footsteps are the things that have brought me there.
Do you wish you could focus on practicing medicine without all the distractions? Coveris is here to help. As a leader in medical professional liability insurance with more than 45 years experience, Coveris provides insurance protection with data-driven predictive modeling to help you mitigate the risk of claims. By combining insurance protection with risk analytics services, you can reduce distractions and focus on improving clinical, operational, and financial outcomes. Coveris is reinventing what you should expect from your medical professional liability provider. Find out all Coveris can offer you at coveris.com. That's Coverys.com. Insurance products issued by Medical Professional Mutual Insurance Company and its insurance subsidiaries, Boston, Massachusetts. And that's a fascinating story. Just so many interesting nuggets there. And the loss of your father being struck by lightning, the odds of that are pretty slim statistically from what I gather. Living in a small village and not having access to basic utilities, being raised by your grandmother, and then connecting with missionaries, so you were able to pursue your education in a way that was more feasible than having to walk 3 hours to the high school. All of those are just fascinating details, so I appreciate you sharing that. And from what I understand, that background that we just talked about, it's pretty important context to have this discussion about the children's book that you recently published, Dr. Lewis. Its name is I'm All Grown Now, Papa, and it's somewhat autobiographical. It's a story of a young boy who grew up in rural Haiti without his father, addressing questions to his father in heaven. And you actually, from what I gather, Dr. Lewis, actually began your day reading this book to some kindergarten students. And this book is sort of an allegory about the struggle of young people from impoverished nations to become educated, to achieve their dreams as you did. So I'm curious if you could just tell me a little bit more about the book and about your process of writing it and what lessons you hope it will impart to the people who read it.
I started writing about 2 years ago, talking about children's books, but I've always wanted to write my story. So I did write my adult autobiography, and I finished it maybe 5 years ago, but I felt like I needed more or less experience maybe to add into it, so that's why I haven't published it. So 2.5 years ago, my wife brought up the idea, why don't you just write some children's books? You know, you could start with your autobiography as a children's autobiography, and we could use that to raise funds for the school project we have in Haiti and the clinic as well. So that's where this wonderful idea came from. I never thought about writing children's books, even when I really like the fact that we are able to read books to the kids every night, things that I've never experienced growing up. My mother was illiterate, it still is, and my grandma definitely didn't know how to read. So for me, it's so amazing to be able to read so many books to them, and they absorb everything and so on. So I'm like, well, children's books, they are really fun. And I took her advice and I started to write, and I came up with I'm All Grown Now, Papa, which is pretty much children's version of my autobiography. So this book and the other three, because we do have 4 books that are all ready to be published. I'm All Grown Now, Papa, I just published last month, but we have next coming. It's When Kites Met Toussaint. Toussaint is one of the Haitian leading hero for during the War for Independence.
Mm-hmm.
An amazing leader that the world doesn't really know enough about. So we thought it was amazing right before Black History Month to bring Toussaint out in our conversation. And also, The Girl with the Golden Heart will be our 3rd book. It will be published at the end of next year. And the last book on this series will be The Mountain Boy, which is a middle grade version of I'm All Grown Now, Papa. So the books are written, as I said, to really raise funds for the project in Haiti, because I don't like asking for donations, and my wife realized that was a problem. That's why she suggested that we wrote those books in order to use them as a vehicle of funding. So 100% of all 4 of these books will be going to education programs in Kikwa, Haiti, where we have a number of primary school students, high school students that we sponsor. And also this year, 2021, we will be having 15 university students all going to mostly education, but also we have a couple of nursing students and 1 medical student with an agreement with them to return to their community to serve. So this is a huge project. Hopefully our expectations are not too high. I would like to dream big, because I just want to make sure that we start this movement within Kikwa and we could spread outside of Kikwa. And who knows, eventually in the whole country, about the importance of education, but starting from within, like the community itself investing in its children. So that's the whole point of this book. And I would like to be able to bring with my books the resilience, the history, the beauty of the Haitian people, and hope that, we will spread more positivity while we also help children become world changers, world leaders. I would also like for, kids in the U.S. to understand, the privileges that they have to be able to have an education, to be able to go to school, to be able to have meals in school that's not guaranteed. Because when I was a kid, I went to school sometimes hungry, and my brother and I was 6 years old when he was like 9, 10, and we were walking 1 hour each way to that little primary school. that we displayed in the back of the book, I'm All Good Now, Papa. So it's a story of struggle, and it's all really developed in that first book that I published, in talking to my dad about how life is, how tough it is, what we need to do, and how I'm trying my best to be like him, a positive individual with no real role model. But I thank God I had my grandma and my mom. I don't want to take her out of the picture. My mom was amazing, but my grandma was the one that really had that kind of impact on me. And I want to let the story out, because I think it could help a lot of kids elevate.
Well, it sounds like you've got big plans with a series of books, and then you just mentioned that all proceeds from the sale of this book, which is available from most major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, places like that, are going to support educational programs in your homeland. And that's through the nonprofit organization Words in Action Haiti, that I believe you founded, Dr. Lewis, some years ago. So if people want to learn more about this nonprofit organization and the work that it does, or even to donate, is there a website or an online address or resources that you would direct them to find out more information?
Yes, we do have a website. It's called Words in Action Haiti. It's www.wiahaiti.org. It's WIA Haiti, HAITI.org, where we update sometimes. Our Facebook page, Words in Action Haiti, is usually the most up to date, because we update it every once in a while. But that website is legit and is safe to receive donations. And so everybody that wants to donate could go through Words in Action Haiti website and do so.
All right, well, we appreciate you sharing that. And now that we've tackled some of the formal stuff that we wanted to cover with you today, Dr. Lewis, we do have a few other personal questions to give our listeners a bit of a sense of who you are beyond the work that you do, both your clinical work and obviously your philanthropic work. The first, sir, is, in the imaginary scenario where you could anticipate your final day on Earth, what would your last meal be?
Okay, that's easy though. Haitian étouffée. It's a vegetable stew with seasoning, either with crabs. I don't like pork, but sometimes they do it with pork. Man, I'll eat it, even when it's pork. They usually cook it for I don't know. My wife was trying to do it, and she said, well, I could do this because it took 5 hours, because there was a Haitian family that was trying to teach her how to do it. And she's like, oh, that's too long. So it's overcooked, and it's called Haitian étouffée. I think they have it in Louisiana. But I tried that. It's not the same thing. So my mom would do my mom would have to prepare my Haitian étouffée and put a little bit of white rice, on the side, or some rice and beans. And probably for dessert, a slice of the sweetest mango on earth. That would be my favorite meal.
Sounds good. I've had étouffée before, and to your point about ripe mangoes, when you get that perfect mango that's juicy and it's sweet, but it tastes like a little bit like mint, it perhaps is the best fruit out there. So I will agree with you there. And then finally, sir, to close us out, one final question. If you were stranded on a deserted island, what one book, one album, and one movie would you take with you to keep yourself company? We will spot you a copy of the religious text of your choice. So other than that, what are your 3 entertainment survival kit picks?
Oh, if I caught an island, first of all, I'd be running. I'm a long distance runner, so I try to entertain myself doing that. For books, oh man, The Cider House Rules, John Irvin. I've read it a long time ago. I would like to reread it.
I came as a physician to the abandoned children and unhappily pregnant women. Good night, you princes of Maine, you kings of New England.
Why does Dr. Larch say that every night? Does it because we like it?
I have a lot of books. The Tennis Partner, Abraham Verghese. It's about an attending and an intern in the story. It's actually an autobiography thing, and it was amazing too. So one of those 2 books.
Okay, and then one album and one movie.
Oh, well, you know what? Because I'm from Haiti, I need to bring a Haitian book, right? A friend of mine from medical school, she writes novels, and one of her novels called La Malédiction des Bouffons, it's written in French. It's a classic. So that would probably be one Haitian book that I would have to have on my pile. Favorite movie, The Great Debater. The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington
Mm-hmm.
and Forrest Whitaker. That's my all-time favorite.
I am the darker brother. I, too, am America. I want you to try out for the debate team.
You sure you want somebody like me?
No. That's why you're trying out. Gentlemen and lady, debate is combat, but your weapons are words.
Okay, and then one
When
album.
you talk about best album, okay, that's a little bit different because it will be Haitian. But the good thing is that they sang in English too. So I was growing up when I was a teenager. I was a big fan of a group of 6 guys called Original Rap Staff. They sang in English, French, and Creole. And my favorite, I still remember my favorite artist. His name was Honey Mike, and he could sing in English and French and Creole alike. And that would be my favorite group. And the song, if I were to pick up a song, there's a song called My Mistake. It's in French and English.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. That would have been my best one, my favorite one.
Avant que j'ai tout foutu en l'air, en m'envoyant en l'air avec la partenaire de ton frère. Je sais que je t'ai déçu et ça t'a vraiment déplu. Je jure, je le ferai plus car dorénavant je ne suis plus le même. Je t'aime et mes compliments sont témoins. Quand je m'ennuie de toi, je...
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today and telling us about your new book, I'm All Grown Now, Papa, and about Words in Action Haiti, and about all the important work that you're doing out there. And with that, that is going to bring us to the close of another episode of the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association's Patients Come First podcast. If you like what you heard, please go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review and subscribe so that you know